were just finishing Sean Levy's previous movie, Date Night.
And he walked in talking about this really cool thing.
Okay, we're going to do this movie called Real Steel. You better start thinking about it.
And he was coming in and giving us these reports and saying, oh, this is so cool, this is so cool. You got to see this. And pretty soon he started to show us things.
In the corner to my right, the challenger, Adam!
So we started getting previs probably a year and a half almost of all the robots, the really, really early ideas of how these robots were going to look, how they're going to walk. They were putting together a little sizzle reel to basically show the studio and to show their vision. And sure enough, Sean calls up and he's like, I need this, need stuff now, go.
And so one of the first things we got was a thing that they call the Bible, the show Bible. In this fancy binder, it's Ron Ames handed me this and said, here's everything to know about the robots. And so we started to look at where they came from, and I mean that not only from a design standpoint, what the designer was thinking when he came up with the robot was going to be a particular color, a particular shape, but also the entire universe from present day into the timeline of the movie itself. And so we got to actually get all of this prologue and backstory to all of these characters and learn about the evolution of the sport.
These robots are really born of this world. It's not a futuristic film by any means. It sort of takes place about 10 to 15, 20 years in the future. But Sean was very, very wise to sort of make it could be an any day sort of period movie. These robots aren't sort of like your sci-fi typical robots. They're not Terminator type robots. They're not Transformers type robots. They're about 8 feet to 9 feet tall. They're controlled by humans. They're built and designed, and they look like anybody at this day and age in 2011 could actually build them.
Like anything that comes from the future, from a storytelling standpoint, is you're obviously having to create things that don't exist. We were thrust into this environment of, here's a guy in blue pajamas. At some point he might look like this guy. What does he sound like conceptually, and how do we get those sounds on the screen?
These robots don't talk, they don't do anything, so we had to figure out ways of how to get emotion, how to sort of figure out if one robot's beating up the other one, how to sort of use sounds to sort of give you the sense that, wow, that robot's really getting beat up, or he's, in pain, or all those sort of ideas. And that sort of sounds came again from sort of lots of round table ideas between my crew.
Adam was a challenge because he was one of the robots that they actually built. When you think about it conceptually, when you're not able to look at him visually, you think Adam, he's in the junkyard, he should, so we'll start there, junky sounds, he should be rickety, maybe he gets repaired along the way and gets cooler, and those are the first couple things that we tried, and, Sean didn't like it, and it never quite hit the character the way that it needed to. So we tried Adam 3 or 4 times, back and forth, trying to figure out what he should be.
Combo! Again! Again! Fast! Faster! Nice! You're not even out of breath. I like it. Okay, see how you move. That's good.
It's mostly a movement. We ended up calling it a whale moan. We needed to find a specific sound for him, but at the same time, it needed to not get boring. I knew going in, when I was looking for the sound, that I needed to find something that had a lot of variation, a musical quality, something that changed a lot but was always recognizable as that same thing. And then that's where I started. I found something that was just very strange, very weird, and I took that and I turned it into what Adam was. And the funny thing is, if I showed you what that original sound was and showed you what Adam sounded like, you would never be able to guess that where Adam ended up is where we started with it.
over a year and a half ago when we first got the first initial previs stuff, the first thing we started to do was make a laundry list and a grocery list of like places and things and ideas of what we needed to do. We knew from the script that there's a lot of fighting. We knew that there's going to be a lot of boxing matches in the underground, which are a little bit more rough and ready, and then into the sort of WRB, which is the World Robot Boxing League, which is the echelon of robot boxing. So the idea was we need sounds from every sort of aspect of junkyards, scrapyards. So between Skip and Warren and Wayne and myself and also Rob Noakes, we basically just recorded everything all the time.
The other thing that took a while and was a big ongoing process was Foley. We would go and get some initial Foley and put it in, and then as the characters changed, the Foley we would refine it. We would throw stuff out and put some new stuff in. And I think over time there was a real evolution on a few characters to actually get their sound, to the end, but it was a long process.
Our basic job in Foley is to add the character to the robots or whatever character is walking on the screen. In order to do that, we need to have something that sounds pretty big and cool, but I also have to be able to manipulate it. And so to get the heavier steel characters that like Midas and those guys, we use these big steel plates, and that against the metal has a real cool big steel sound. So for the earlier robots, the Ambush character is kind of a beat-up old squeaky robot that's been around for a lot of years, and he's on the road, and Charlie's trying to make some money with him. So we kind of made up some stuff to make him kind of sound squeaky and creaky and kind of like he was falling apart most of the time. So here's old creaky hinge, which they don't make these anymore, so they're very hard to find. They put rubber grommets in them these days, so we have a box of hinges that come in very handy for these kind of situations. So another thing we did to make Adam's movements kind of more fluid than the other robots, than say Noisy Boy and those guys, was we had this little device here that's kind of a workout machine, but it has a real cool, when you set it down and move it, so for the character Zeus, who is a large robot at the end of the movie that Adam fights, we needed to get like a heavier, beefier sounding footstep. So we got this case here, and once again, I have to be able to manipulate it to be able to fight the character and run them around a boxing ring and do all that kind of stuff. We took microphones and put them, if you put them under the metal floors and on the metal floors, it gives you a real nice beefy sound. And we were able to do this for his feet walking.
So we're cheering when I go 1, 2, 3. You're smelling, you want more blood, 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 and up means he lost his head.
The other side of what we did for Real Steel was not just to sort of do with the robot sounds. We actually recorded a lot of crowds. We did a lot of boxing crowds and big baseball crowds and stuff like that. Rob Noakes again went out and recorded wrestling match crowds. We had a guy in New York, Carl Anderson, who actually, I flew him to Detroit, and on the 2 days that they had 1,000 extras, I had him sort of draw up a list of things that like a grocery list of what I needed, and we basically treated it like a big loop group ADR sequence. And Sean got on the megaphone and he was like, okay, extras, we need Chance of Adam. So everyone go, Adam, Adam, or Zeus, or Ambush, and a list of those sort of things as long. And on top of that, we had cheering and all these sort of things. So the great thing is, like, we got all these extras to do stuff specifically for the film, and then, bring them back here and lay them up and manipulate them again. And what it allowed us to do is really give a flavor of the set and what was going on the day for these fights and stuff like that. So it was a great sort of extra.
This ain't a video game. This is for real. Let's make some money!
Probably my favorite thing about Real Steel was the people, the team that was assembled. I've worked with these people before. I've worked with Sean before. I've worked with the picture department before. Worked with the sound guys before. And there's a shorthand that develops where you know what you need to do. They know when to ask, you know when to ask, and all of a sudden it's really about the project and not about any of the personalities. And I think that we had such a great crew camaraderie, both just in-house and then with everybody, with VFX, with the picture department, that like I said, at a certain point all the technique goes away and you can just focus on getting the work done and getting the movie to sound the way you hope it's going to sound.